Hello guys and welcome, it is ThatSrb2DUDE here today bringing you yet another Splatoon 2 video. Now technically this video is a part 2 to my patch comparison video on version 1.4, but I want to talk a little bit more about the baller changes and how it's kind of meshed within version 1.4. But before we do that, I would like to finish off the patch notes and comparisons for some of the gear abilities. So with that being said, let's get into it. But again, before we do the gear abilities, let me just point out this one special weapon which is basically just on its own. The distance of the curling bomb launcher has been increased by roughly 50% when it's not being charged. Only one weapon has this, and it's the silver air spray, and nobody really uses it. Now going into the gear abilities, with Ink Saver main, for the following weapons they are slightly now more efficient, which is the Splattershot Pro, the Lunar Blaster, the H3 Nozzle Nose, Dynamo Roller Elite to 4K, and the Tenterbrella. There has been a 20% increase for run speed up for only Splatling weapons. This will only include the Mini Splatling and the Heavy Splatling. Special Power Up has got a few changes. With Special Power Up with Ink Armor, it now shortens the frames from you pressing the special button to you getting Ink Armor on your Inkling. Duration still applies, but it may seem shorter because of the frame difference. Special Power Up on an Inkjet, you will now see that the explosion radius is now wider, but by doing this you'll be sacrificing the duration of your Inkjet. For Special Power Up with the Tentamissiles, the radius for Tentamissiles with Special Power Up has been increased by 67%. With this example, I am wearing 1 main and 3 subs, and you can definitely see the difference in version 1.4. The charge time when performing a super jump has been decreased when using quick super jump. With opening gambit, you now have ink resistance included, as you can see in version 1.3. No ink resistance, and my Inkling is struggling to run through, but on version 1.4, I have no problem at all. Cold-Blooded is now 20% more efficient when protecting yourself against point sensors and ink mines, and it also has increased protection in which the player is immune to revealing effects of Thermal Ink, Haunt, and Stingray. In the example shown, you cannot see the Inkling when they are very close up to you when they are wearing Cold-Blooded. However, if they are to move further and further and further away, you will then be able to see the Inkling. This all depends on how much Cold-Blooded this Inkling is actually wearing. With Sub Power Up, the maximum power for sprinklers has been increased by 150%, and the duration time for this has been increased. You can now jump 50% faster when using Sub Power Up with Squid Beacons, and for point sensors, Sub Power Up now greatly increases the duration time when someone is being marked. The same applies for ink mines, however it is not as long as point sensors due to ink mines already having the increased radius with Sub Power Up. And with all that being said, let's talk about the baller and the apparent massacre that it gets in this patch. Tentamissiles now do 50% more damage to ballers. With this example, you can see the baller in version 1.4 being popped. Stingray does 100% more damage to ballers, meaning they'll break twice as fast. Inkjet also does 100% more damage to ballers, meaning that you only need 2 direct hits to actually destroy the baller. Inkstorm does roughly 150% more damage to ballers, which isn't exactly too much, but as you can see in version 1.4, the baller loses one of its patch strips. Bubble Blower, first of all, is 20 frames faster, and your teammates can apply 20% more damage compared to you to destroy your bubbles. Bubble Blower also roughly does 100% more damage to ballers. In version 1.4, you can see the baller instantly pops. And the baller itself. Ballers against ballers do 150% more damage to them. In version 1.4, you can see the baller also instantly pop. The minimum damage radius has been decreased by 14%, and the overall sound for ballers are much louder compared to version 1.3. Let's have a listen. So, what do I think about ballers in version 1.4? Do I think it's just completely decimated by all these patches and such? Well, personally, I don't think anything is wrong with it. If anything, I feel like it's just a little bit more fair compared to version 1.3. And this is why. If you watched my last patch comparison video, you would know that the baller is weaker to the following categories: brushes, charges, and rollers. Now, all three of these categories, they had no chance against ballers. They literally just get out-pressured. So by giving them this buff, makes it much easier for them to actually deal with ballers, because in version 1.3, they literally couldn't do anything. It was just a done deal. With all the damage buffs to special weapons against ballers, I also think it's very fair as well. Because beforehand in version 1.3, you couldn't really do anything to ballers. Ballers can kind of just get away with doing anything. They had a massive radius buff, which I am glad that they reduced, because beforehand it was a really big explosion. I do like that you can also get it back to that standard as well by putting on special power up, because now what that actually means is that now you have to sacrifice a couple slots to actually get into that standard. And let's also mention the aerospray as well. Considering the aerospray does not paint as well as it used to, and also now it can't get ballers like it used to. Like back in version 1.3, it could get ballers pretty much like in every 6 seconds. So you basically main baller if you use the gold aerospray. With this, I also think it's a really good nerf. It makes things a little bit more fair, because personally, I don't feel like any weapon should be getting a special every single 5 seconds once they've used one special. Like, it gets a little bit ridiculous at that point, especially when it was like the baller in version 1.3. But by me saying all of this is pretty much all that has happened to ballers. Basically, it's just weaker to special weapons, so if you're using a baller, just be careful of other people's special weapons. Other than that, every single shooter in the game, you know, it's very strong against that. It's also still really strong against rollers, charges, and brushes, but now they're in the way that they can still at least fight against it much like a shooter can. But pretty much the only weakness now to ballers are just other special weapons. So when using a baller, just be very cautious about when someone has a special weapon. I'd say the more effective ones are Bubble Blower and Inkjet, because it's not so hard to pop a bubble near a baller, and with Inkjet, all you need to do is just get 2 direct hits. It also kind of depends on the situation. Like if someone's using Inkjet and you use baller, like the best idea is just to get behind them or just get right under them, so they can't hit you and just explode straight away, because they are just pretty much a sitting duck in the air. Those are pretty much my opinions on the baller. It's still a very strong special, but just much fairer in the metagame. So those are my opinions of how baller has changed in version 1.4. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening and stuff like that. Please, if you did, please like, favorite, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you had not already. Follow me on Twitter and Twitch, both in the description below. Do it for both if you're feeling generous. And as always, guys, this has been ThatSrb2DUDE, and I shall see you guys in a future video.